We are back on Morning Line. Our guest with us this morning is Metro Vice Mayor Jim Schulman, talking about a range of topics. Some people have some thoughts. We're going to get to some phone calls here. Everything from homelessness to we were just talking about the cherry trees and the NFL. And so we can touch on any number of topics, including maybe if you want to discuss the results of the election just in. There were some changes with judges, and we know that the sitting district attorney was reelected in a much closer race than I think many maybe expected. So let's take some of your phone calls that we're waiting through the break, and we'll go next to Wilma. Wilma, good morning. Hi, Wilma.
Hello there. I want to address two issues real quickly, and the first would be about the near homeless, and the second would be about the homeless. In regards to your first caller about that ordinance, that came up right after the Vietnam War. We passed that ordinance to keep the Laotians and the Vietnamese from crowding into a house in order to try to survive as recent refugees, okay? That's where that came from, and I think Mount Juliet passed a similar ordinance back in 2017 or 2018 to keep the Nashville refugees from moving into Mount Juliet like that. So unless you're an 85-year-old woman with a gutter hanging down and you're a widow, codes ain't going to come out and enforce nothing on you. So the second thing is, Vice Mayor, there's a piece of property out on, I think it's, is it Easel Road or Donaldson Pike on the corner of Murfreesboro Pike? When you're looking at that big deal, HCA deal we gave to those two corporations, behind there, when you go down Donaldson Pike on the right, there's a piece of Tennessee state property for sale there. You know, I would suggest that the state of Tennessee, before they allow the Chinese investment corporation buy that up, that they decide to build like maybe a 50-story building there or something for the homeless when they bust them for, you know, camping. They can put them there like a kind of like a camping homeless prison, violation prison, have only a bus route going in there so they can take them out to the interstate so they can clean up the exit ramps and limb up those trees so they can work off their fine. And I think, you know, when you're in absolute power like that, you can do absolutely stupid crap like that. So that's my suggestion to cure the homeless problem.
Thank you, Wilma. I know the property I think she's talking about back there behind the airport and the like. But part of it, and you can address that, is also, if you do find a place like that, what kind of dwellings are you going to build? And when she talks about a big tower like that, I think about the ill-fated Cabrini Green in Chicago area, which was horrible. I mean, you have to think, and we have some very nice subsidized housing that had been built over time here in some of the project areas that are nice, and some of them have worked out well. That's part of it too. What are you going to build once you find that place? Is it going to be a tower? Is it going to be a bunch of tall skinnies, small houses? What will it be? But what do you think of her suggestion there about property near the airport?
First of all, Wilma has lots of strong opinions.
Yes, yeah, okay. Sure she does.
I was thinking about the piece of property because I think I drove by it the other day. Yeah. I think what you're looking for is look, individuals, families experiencing homelessness, they are people just like everybody else, all right? So it's not like we're going to put them behind some fence someplace. No, this is, what you're trying to do is figure out what is the proper way and what is the best way to effectively address homelessness. And I don't think it's necessarily in a 50-story building, but it is, I think it's more, at least in my opinion, it's more like what Austin was trying to do, Austin, Texas. And they build a community where there's businesses starting to come up and people have a safe place to live. They're not giant houses, but they're places where people can call home. And I think that's really important. They have community gardens there. So it became a community. I don't think there are differences of opinion in terms of having what's known as a sanctioned encampment. And some people will say that Brookmead Park is a sanctioned encampment because it's a place where people can live who are experiencing homelessness, and it's allowed. Now, some people would say it's not really a sanctioned encampment. A sanctioned encampment is we're going to designate an area and people can live there.
Okay. Who is it, by the way, that will have the power? Who has the power? Is it the mayor? Does the council have? Who has the power, flat out, to say, we're going to do something for the homeless on this piece of property? Who has that power?
I think it's ultimately the mayor, but in terms of like a piece of property that the state of Tennessee has, we'd have to buy it.
Okay, yeah.
And
okay.
so eventually
she
the
was
council,
referring to Tennessee property
Yeah.
up there, but metro property.
Metro property.
I mean, is the mayor that can say, I am decide now? Of course, the council determines if he's going to get the money to do it, I guess. But I mean, who can make that call that we're doing this there?
Look, we have a very strong mayoral form of government. So most of because he has the power of the purse. I mean, we ultimately have it in terms of the council,
Right.
and then it goes to the taxpayers are the ultimate judge of it. But the mayor is strong enough where the mayor wants to do something, and he could do it. And so the ideas are to throw them in there and say, okay, what makes the most sense? Again, what I would do is have lots of groups around the table and go, okay, if we got $50 million to spend, what's the best way to spend that $50 million? To start addressing this idea of dealing with homelessness, not just as a one-time hit, because this is a one-time lump sum of money,
Right.
but in the long range plan for the city, what are the right steps? What do we do right now to start building on this so we can actually address an issue? You ever wonder sometimes, I was thinking before, I watched something over the weekend about Bobby Kennedy, and he was talking about, in the clips, and they were also showing his brother, they were talking about the divisiveness of society. That was back in the late 60s. People were fighting, there were riots going on. And then you look today and it's like, wait a minute, what he said over 50 years ago is relevant today. It's like, no, obviously some things have changed, but we still have fighting. We still have all this stuff going on. And we still have a lot of the same issues. And so the question is, can we at some point actually put our heads together and try to figure out a way to actually solve one of these things?
Now, we muddle along, and eventually we do, but homelessness has been a problem with no clear-cut solution for decades. Some things have worked in small amounts, but something's going to have to give here at some point because it's just getting out of control. I don't know. We'll see what it is. It's going to cost money, time, and effort. Let's go to Jerry. Jerry, good morning. Hi, Jerry.
Good morning. I have a question about our taxes, specifically our urban services taxes. I moved into a new home in West Nashville in the summer of 2019. The neighborhood has an SP zoning, and therefore we end up having a private street because the street's too narrow for two cars to pass each other. And with that, we do not get services such as garbage pickup. We do not get street maintenance. We do not get street light maintenance, recycling. I've contacted numerous people in metro government saying, hey, why do I have to pay Urban Services District tax for services that I'm not provided?
Yeah.
And, I have to pay these in addition to the tax. So what can we do about that? We're in a neighborhood of 8 homes, and we're all having to pay this extra tax that we're not getting the benefit of.
8 homes. Gotcha.
Okay.
Okay. And by the way, real quick before you answer, what is the SP zoning?
SP is like a special plan, specific plan zone for an area that basically says, in this thing, we're going to put certain restrictions. You can only build so high. Blah blah. It's a special plan for a specific area.
And that, just 8 homes, she says. They're on a narrow private road the space isn't enough, and yet they're still paying and not getting some of the services that they are paying for.
As long as I've been around government, I don't know if I had actually heard about that one, but that's a really interesting point. Because I understand that, when you're in the urban services district, general services, I got that part in the trash pickup. But she's in the urban services district. She's paying she's paying taxes.
Yes.
But she lives on she now lives on a private street that's not taken care of by Metro, and she's paying for garbage pickup and trash pickup and for services that she doesn't get because she's on a private
Yeah, so
street.
I mean, there's two ways to solve that. Either you provide those services, or she should get a waiver and not have to pay those taxes.
Yeah, so I don't know if this has been addressed before. So I always give out my phone number.
Give out the
on
number. Okay, again, that was Jerry. And Jerry, take this down because it's not often that he's hit with a question maybe that he hasn't dealt with before, but it sounds like something he can look into for you. Give the number out for her so you can
Jerry,
follow up on it.
It's 615 584 1082. 615 584 1082. Give me a call. The voicemail is full because Ann calls me sometimes and make sure she knows, and she makes sure that I know that.
Can you get text messages on that?
Yeah, you can always text me.
Also, you'll see this is Jerry. I called into Morning Line, and maybe you can. So I wonder if there's a lot in her situation like that around the city.
Well, that's what I'm.
That's interesting that she's got 8 houses. I know exactly the kind of living arrangement they have. I've seen some of those. I wonder if there's a lot.
Well, I can't. I mean, I'm just thinking, I can't believe this hasn't been answered before. It probably has been. And the fact that it's in the Urban Services District, even though it may be a private street, it may have been opined at some point that, yeah, they still have to pay taxes, the higher taxes. But it's worth taking a look at.
Okay, Jerry,
it's interesting.
appreciate the call. Hopefully he can help you on that. I wish we had a better answer now, but it sounds like something you can definitely check on.
Oh, sure.
Sir. All right, let's go next to James. James, good morning, James.
Good morning, Harry and David. How are y'all?
Good. I like Harry and David. They make great pairs. I used to live, by the way, near Medford, Oregon, where Harry and David is. And every year I got to go with a friend of mine who worked there and go to the orchards and actually pick my own Harry and David big juicy pears.
Really?
It was awesome. It was awesome.
I learned stuff about you all the time.
Yes, Harry and David.
That I probably really didn't want to know anyway.
I'm not sure why he calls us Harry and David. I'm sorry, James. This is your call. You go ahead.
Oh, I'm having fun. I'm enjoying it. The race, I'm hoping they'll change it a little bit, put us in a little longer version where we can see some of the higher speeds. And the way they turn them curves and those hairpins is brute strength. It's designed to do it. It's brute strength. And I would hope we plant those trees somewhere in a green walkway. I mean, I would even come help because I am a tree hugger.
You and me both. The trees are already back, though he's talking about the cherry trees. I've heard that. A lot of people sometimes say, is race car driving truly a sport, or you have to be athletic to do it? And the answer is unequivocally yes. Yes, and he's right. Those drivers, I mean, first of all, they have to be incredibly brave because you crash at 200 miles an hour. But that's what I've heard. I mean, you really have to have strong arms. And he's right, too. I've heard that they may want to try to add more seating in areas where there's more of the straightaways. That's exciting to watch.
Yeah, it's like I said, I really don't know much about the sport.
Yeah.
But when I saw how they had built the track, it's like,
winding.
How in the world are you going to be going, 200 miles an hour and then turn left? It's like you don't do that. You know the track, and there is a science.
Yeah.
These individuals are truly athletes. They have to be very, very capable and smart to be able to figure all this stuff out. And there's also there's a tremendous skill to it.
Yeah. And my understanding is, like, we've watched the Indy 500, and those are Indy cars, and these are, I think, Formula One cars. Now, in Indy 500 you watch, I mean, they're going around that loop at the Brickyard going, 200 miles an hour nonstop. In this, you've got some Formula One cars that look similar, that sometimes, because of these hairpins, I mean, they're not going 200 miles an hour. They're slowing down to maybe 10 miles an hour to make a turn.
That's right.
And then accelerating, which is what makes it so different and unique.
It's very, very unique. On the trees, I was trying to make sure they didn't plant the trees close to the track.
Yeah.
But
right.
yeah, the trees have been planted. But one of the things, Nick, that I think is also relevant on all this stuff is that it was such a big deal story at the time when it went.
Yeah, crazy.
And now we've moved on past it. And the idea is maybe somebody should go back and check on those trees and make sure they're all okay. I think they're fine.
I may just mention it in the news meeting this morning. I think they're fine. I know there were tree and arborist groups that were very, closely watching that. And I think we would have heard had the NFL reneged or the trees were not replanted. Yeah. But it's been a few years, so why not check it out?
What happened to the trees we took away? Were they all replaced? And what happened? Were any of them able to be saved?
Okay, yeah. Yeah, it's worth checking out. Let's go to Claude next. Good morning, Claude.
Good morning. Thank you, gentlemen, for taking my call this morning.
Sure.
I'm calling you live from over here at the Grand Prix on the Nice Drive that we talked about several months ago, Vice Mayor. And I was just wondering if you could help our councilman, Kenny Winch, in the 16th District about our speed humps. We've been promised these things, and of course I've been complaining for 46 years, but people were calling in talking about the racing. They need to come over here because it's a free pony show. And I'd like for you would to give her a talking to and see if she'll get back with us.
I will see Councilmember Welch tonight and let her know.
That was Claude. Claude brings
Nice.
back memories of Joe.
Nice drive.
Rest his soul.
Yeah.
Joe, who was a loyal caller who passed away, I think, last year. And he would always ask, what does it take to get a speed bump on my road? It's out of control. And do you know what the area Claude was referring to there?
It's in District 16. It's
Yeah.
Nice Drive.
Okay,
I don't know exactly where it is.
They
but-
drive like the Grand Prix there.
Yeah. So it took a while, but I think now I have not been out to where Joe lived,
Yeah.
and I knew he passed away, but we stayed on it, and Councilmember Syracuse stayed on it, and they may have finally gotten those.
It should be
speed humps.
dedicated to Joe. There should be a
Well, and so
plaque
the
there on
idea
it.
was that's what should happen,
Yeah.
because he was the one who.
Yeah, and
he
what
was the one-
happened there is what Claude may have happened for him now.
And so I know there's, there's resources put in. There's a process to determine where you're on the list. I don't know where. I can check on Nice Drive, but sometimes I wish these things would happen faster.
Yeah, and listen, we'll take a break on that note. When we come back, more calls, more of our conversation with the Vice Mayor right after this.